Hello and welcome to this special episode of Waste and Recycling Insights. Today we are diving into how geopolitical tensions in the Middle East are creating ripple effects far beyond energy markets, impacting metals, logistics, and global supply chains. The ongoing conflict around the Strait of Hormuz, a corridor that handles critical exports and imports, has stirred uncertainty across trade flows, from energy and metals to port operations and shipping services. Metals such as aluminum, copper, and steel have seen price increases and supply chain strain, and ports struggle with disruptions. At the same time, the logistic landscape is under pressure. Freight rates are rising as carriers reroute vessels, impose surcharges, or suspend bookings in high risk zones, adding complexity and cost for exporters and importers. To unpack how all of this affects the metals industry and logistics, we are joined today by Mr. Anshul Gupta, CEO of PGI Group, and Mr. Amit Kamat, Chairman of Federation of Freight Forwarders Association in India. We sincerely thank them for joining us during this extremely busy time. Anshul, thank you. Let me start off with you. Could you briefly describe the impact of the current geopolitical tensions on the metals industry in the Middle East, particularly in the context of the force majeure declaration across the aluminum sector and wider supply chain disruptions?
Hi, Kirtana. Hi, Amit. Lovely to have this panel here. First of all, I'm very optimistic. And once we go through this, our supply chain, our industry, metal industry would be much more tougher and resilient because these things really make us think what should be the best way going forward. So I'm very optimistic. Yes, we have to go through this, but it will make us more resilient and much better, efficient in future. So with this, we all know the challenges we are facing. We all read in newspapers. Gulf of Hormuz is closed, so no vessels are going in and out except few vessels which are allowed a few days back. Secondly, because of that, Jebel Ali port, which is operational, but there's no vessel calling. And for us, based in UAE, Jebel Ali is the major port. It's our live stream. UAE government has been coping up very well, and they've been very proactive in diverting the traffic to Korfakan, Fujairah, even collaborating with Sohar port, trying to open up all the streams so the trade can flow in and out. Yes, their first major importance is food. So that's the most important thing for all of us in UAE and Middle East. And then definitely they're trying to facilitate the trade movement. As of now, it's very difficult to take out any containers out of UAE. And the major impact of force majeure, which Kirtana mentioned, two plants, Alba and Katalam, as per my knowledge, have declared force majeure. Though I heard there some of the plants are working at 60% capacity, but I'm not sure how right it is. Apart from that, in Saudi and UAE, the plants, aluminum smelting plants, are also working, but the metal has stopped flowing inside in the global market, which has taken off, I think, 500,000 tons or similar capacity or 1 million tons off immediately. So this has caused the premiums to go up. We can see physical premiums in MJP going up, physical premiums in Europe going up. Even I heard the billets are in Europe are $1,000 premium, and MJP is more than, I think, 320 or $340 now. So all these disruptions have created a short-term effect. But if you see 2026 market, it is very similar, driven by this disturbances or policy change like tariffs. And same thing we experienced in 2022 as well. In 2022, there were challenges. And again, if you remember Ukraine-Russian war, suddenly aluminum was off because of Russian sanctions and the war effect. And we had aluminum was touching almost $3,400, similar to those levels we are seeing now. So yes, these disruptions create these spikes. But at the same time, if you see by end of the year, there was again the metal came down and they were selling, heavy selling, and the metal came back to normalcy. So yes, with this force majeure, we can see disruptions and premiums are going up of physical metal. There's shortage in the global supply chain, and everyone is trying to secure more and more metal by increasing the premiums. So let's see where we settle down with this.
All right, Mr. Anshul, let's take Strait of Hormuz in particular. How critical is it for metals trade, especially for the movement of raw materials and finished products between Asia, the Middle East, and global markets?
So, Kirtana, let's not only focus on aluminum. Look at the
Yeah.
steel. All the
Yes.
steel raw material, we have so many steel plants on that particular belt. All the steel raw material is coming through Gulf of Hormuz. And those plants which are based around the Dammam region or in Bahrain or Qatar or in UAE, they depend a lot on this Gulf of Hormuz route. So bauxite, iron ore, coal, coke, limestone, a lot of things, raw materials are moving in for our plants in the Middle East. So I'm sure they will be facing a challenge, a shortage of raw material. Even I heard everyone is exploring the ways can they get the raw material through Sohar or Jeddah port if the logistic cost permits that. But again, it's a bulk movement, very difficult. But I'm sure everyone is trying their best to make sure at least the plants are running and they're manufacturing and feeding the local market and not creating a shortage in the local market. So yes, all the raw material which we were exporting in terms of our scrap metal has stopped towards east and west. So we used to export a lot to Japan, India, but none of the containers are moving out. The government is trying the best to create the corridors in Corfocan and Sohar Port, Fujairah. And I'm sure they will figure out something very soon. They're very proactive towards it. And we'll find out some solution.
Are traders or scrap buyers exploring alternative logistic strategies to reduce exposure to potential shipping disruptions already?
So we all are working very, very intently. BMR, our association in Middle East, we are discussing almost twice a day about various channels. But the thing which we have figured out is Corfocan and Salalah Sohar port. But then again, yesterday Salalah port got hurt and now it is shut down. As we all know, Salalah is one of the biggest transshipment port for one big shipping line. And by closing that, it's a big thing. So think that also the things are very liquid. It's very difficult to plan because things
Yeah.
suddenly change as well. Though our fraternity is very, very resilient, we try to find a way, cargo movement, so we can make sure that the raw material which we have secured for our customers can reach to them. And if it doesn't reach to them on time, then definitely it is disrupting the price. Price of all the scrap metal has gone up, not only aluminum, but other metals also because they are not moving easily. I'm sure steel scrap will also face the same challenge. Another big challenge, we what no matter whatever we do, now the gas disruption, many of the gas, our customers in India are facing shortage of gas. So when there's a shortage of gas, the first thing which is unplugged by the government is definitely industrial because
Mm.
they cannot touch the civilian gas supply to domestic people. So all the industries will be facing that challenge, whether it is steel, aluminum, who are based on gas, they will have a disruption, and I'm sure many capacities will go down. Not only in India, wherever globally there's a shortage of gas.
Right. Mr. Anshul, you were speaking about how the customers will be affected because they won't receive the raw materials or the scrap, I mean, or the finished products. So could you give me an idea of where are these customers located besides India?
So if you see our Middle East segment, most of the cargo move towards Asia, towards East and the
Mm.
region. And then the second destination is West, which is Europe and US market. So, but the major chunk goes towards Asia. And with closure of Hormuz as well as the shipping lines, it is practically impossible to ship
Mm.
to those places. So most of us, we also explored whether we can export using Jeddah. But then the road transport itself, there's a shortage of trucks. Plus, road transport is also costly affair. And
Right.
bonding is required whenever you're exporting the cargo from here to using Jeddah port. You need to bond the cargo. It cannot go. You have to do custom clearance at both the borders. So everyone is working towards all the options. And I'm sure we'll find out some breakthrough with the help of government.
Right. You have already spoken about some of the immediate impacts, but if you would like to dwell more into the aspects of supply chain delays, price volatility, or the insurance issues, and whether buyers are already factoring in geopolitical risk into pricing, contracts, and delivery schedules, I would appreciate an response from you.
So, as you're aware, all the shipping lines a week back, they announced WRS or risk surcharge, which is roughly $2,000 on 20-foot container and $4,000 on 40-foot container. I mean, absorbing this type of cost is not possible for anyone. Definitely, it is passed on to the manufacturer and then to the consumer. So all the sea freights are up. In spite of that, it is very, very difficult to find the containers. So the port which is working well as we understand, to best of my knowledge, is Jeddah port, which is operational. And even after paying WRS, there's a shortage of shipping line and boxes. So all the cost, I'm sure for the old contracts, we have to discuss with our customers. And most of the customers are very understanding that, yes, WRS is there globally, not globally, in the region. So they are ready to pay or share the WRS. And plus, all of us are now more careful in doing the new contracts that we completely inform the customer that, look, this is a liquid situation and there might be disruptions off and on which are beyond our control, very similar to force majeure. And
Yeah.
everyone is absorbing the price. Globally, the price has gone up for all the raw material, whether it is scrap or finished product, primary products.
Mr. Anshul, you have always held that the recycling industry is a resilient industry. And what lessons from the past supply chain disruptions, such as during the pandemic, or shaping how metals companies are responding to these challenges today?
So look, like, if I see myself or PGI and most of us, what we learned that don't depend completely on the global markets. Always try to be local as well. The world has become completely global with the deliveries, shipping lines, channels. You can export the goods from any part of the world to any part of the world. But sometimes being global also exposes you to these type of unfortunate events. So for me, the biggest learning would be, please look into the local industry, try to do manufacturing, value addition in your own country, wherever the scrap is generated. That should be also looked into by all of us. And also, few of the ports become very strong and very big, which is a good thing because they become very economical and run very efficiently. But we should have alternate ports also. We should not have dependency on a few big ports. That should be my next learning. And third would be to diversify geographically. Don't try to put and then I've learned from my grandfather, don't put all the eggs in the same basket. So most of us know this, but to practice is difficult. But we should keep in mind that geographically, try to spread your risk by having multiple options in different locations. So you can be immune to all these disruptions.
Thank you, Mr. Anshul, for insights on the impact on the metals industry. Now moving on to Mr. Kamat, turning to the impact on the logistics side. So the war has prompted carriers to enact temporary suspensions and surcharges, and logistics has become very expensive. How are these operational changes affecting freight and logistics cost for traders?
There is a lot of uncertainty insofar as logistics is concerned. Cargo from the manufacturers is coming into the ports and is lying unshipped. Most There is a high risk for commodities which are perishable in nature. Shipping lines have invoked the force majeure and they have increased the war surcharge without any justification whatsoever. Justification in the sense, I'm sure there will be additional cost because of the insurance premium becoming high for the during the war. But at such times, the shipping lines are expected to support the industry, and we have been appealing to them to charge a surcharge which is commensurate to the additional cost which they are incurring. But there are
Right.
charges about $2,000 per 20 feet container and $4,000 per 40 feet container and upwards, depending upon shipping line to shipping line, which are being charged to the exempt trade, which is making it extremely prohibitive for them to export because there are contracts which have been signed. The freight rates are in the range of say $500 to $600, and the surcharges are more than three times the freight rate, which is uh, kind of very exorbitant and oppressive, I would say. Secondly, what happens is the cargo is lying in the terminal, so there is a ground rent being charged by the terminals to the shipping line and the shipping lines to the exporter because the vessels have the schedules have gone haywire. The cargo has not been shipped, so cargo is lying in the terminals and the container freight stations in the uh, and there is a ground rent being charged. There is a detention cost, detention which is being charged because shipping line give a certain amount of day free after the containers come into the terminal, and in that time the containers are expected to be shipped on the vessel. Now here the shipper is not at fault because it is not that he has missed a connection or something like that. The shipping line who has not called or who has suspended the service, so they should not ideally be charging detention charges. The terminal should not be charging ground rent, which are very exorbitant. Then therefore the reefer containers which are used for perishables and pharma products, there are plug-in charges. So we as a federation, National Federation of Custom Brokers and Logistic Service Providers, we have been liaising very closely, monitoring the situation. We have um, liaising very closely with the Director General Shipping in India, the Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways, the Department of Customs, and we have been appealing to the shipping lines to waive off the detention charges, to the terminal operators to waive off the ground rent. And so even the DG Shipping has come out with a circular to waive out the ground rent to the pursuant to our follow. The Director General Shipping has addressed to the terminal operators to give a 100% waiver on ground rent until 16th of March today, which is today, and an
Okay.
80% discount on the plug-in charges. Where we have met with success is with the inland container depot. Inland container depots are ICDs, which are in upcountry from which containers come by train to the gateway ports. So if there is a congestion at gateway ports, ICDs also, but the ICD operator, major operator is Comcor, which is Container Corporation of India, and they have consented to our request, our appeal, and waived out the ground rent in totality.
Oh, that's good.
Uh, then the shipping line, there is another problem which is the shipping line tourism community is facing is that the containers are which have been picked up from one port have been dumped into another port in India.
Mm.
So either there is no clarity on what would happen to those containers. Say for example, there are containers from Chennai and Kolkata which are dumped into Nhava Sheva. They are offloaded. How does it go to its destination? How does it if it doesn't go to the destination? If they have to be called back to the origin port, how is it going to be shifted back to the origin port? That clarity has not been given by the shipping lines. This time schedule has also um, not been specified. So all in all, there is a lot of uncertainty even as we speak today.
If the situation escalates, how higher do you think this freight and insurance costs will go, and how they can impact exporters and importers in India as well as the Middle East and across the globe?
I mean, freight would go on, freight would increase, the war surcharge would increase, exports would become very uncompetitive for, and I think there will be a huge losses to the exim fraternity in India and elsewhere also because the contracts will get cancelled. There are consignments which are perishable in nature. I mean, they have a shelf life. They have an expiry date. So those will be rendered useless absolutely to be shipped. So there is going to be I mean you cannot quantify it. This it's very premature to quantify. It's could be anybody's guess. I cannot say what could be the insurance premium in the future. What could it translate into the surcharges? But one thing is sure that contracts are getting delayed, shipments are getting delayed. It also amounts, so far as imports are concerned, it will lead to loss of production because raw material will not reach the uh, factories in time or the industries in time, which they might be out of stock for raw material. So production would get affected. So I think the global, the Indian economy for sure, but the global economy will also definitely get affected. It's a
Right.
chain reaction.
Mr. Amit, staying with you on this, given these pressures, are shipping lines and logistic companies advising clients on route diversion or buffer times or alternative corridors? How and also how challenging is it to reroute shipments that heavily depend on the Strait of Hormuz right now?
To reroute the cargo through, it's very difficult because um, it involves the documentation. That is first step is that you cancel and do a fresh documentation, which is a time consuming thing. Second is the transit time. The alternative to Strait of Hormuz is the Cape of Good Hope.
Hmm.
So it's going to be difficult. There are shipping lines who are offloading cargo in Korfa and
Right.
asking the shipper to truck it down from there to Jebel Ali or to the Gulf ports. But it's not so easy as it appears because I mean the exporter is unprepared for such an eventuality. He does not have got any contact, and he is at the mercy of the service provider at that point of time because he has no other alternative. So rerouting and is a major challenge, and but yes, it depends on the criticality of the shipment. If the shipment is very urgent, then the exporter has no choice but to allow route diversion. Route diversion, maybe it will be multimodal also, partially by sea and then by rail or land, and
Yeah.
depends on which port it is.
What operational challenges are freight forwarders facing when moving cargo through key Middle East routes at the moment? And what do you anticipate as long-term implications?
So key challenges is at the moment the freight market is very volatile. You cannot give anybody any commitment insofar as the freight rates are concerned going forward. Second is the challenge is that if a cargo is destined for the Middle East, uh, it in which for which Strait of Hormuz is unavoidable, then
Mhm.
you have to figure out alternative route, and it has to be a multimodal transportation, which I said earlier, that partially by sea and then by land uh, or by rail,
Yeah.
which is to work out this network again and to plan the shipment is a challenge. And going forward, we are hopeful that the Strait of Hormuz will open up because recently, if you see the past 2 3 days, they are allowing Indian ships which are carrying crude to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. If we translate into cargo ships also moving through the Strait of Hormuz, it would be a saving grace for all of us. Otherwise, it's like you have to reroute the shipment and find the best possible alternative to see that those cargo reaches the destination through another route, which will
Right.
definitely translate into higher cost and longer transit time.
So finally, what advice would you give to exporters and importers to better manage their logistic risks in the current geopolitical climate?
I would say that uh, the importers definitely could look at identifying alternative source of raw materials from which they can import from some other supplier, or if that is possible. And exporters have to slow down their production and exports because unless it is absolutely necessary and it is not commitment bound, then it's better to slow down the production for exports rather than keeping the production at the same levels where containers are going to come and lie down into at ports. The second alternative is that they identify through freight forwarders an alternative network, rework their costing, and have a fresh contract with their buyers and vice versa.
On that note, we come to the end of this discussion. Thank you, Anshul and Amit, for sharing your perspective. We sincerely appreciate you guys have been joining us during this critical period. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Stay connected for more insights from the world of commodities. Thank you.